الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر
In Islam, receiving good education is one of the very basic rights of a child. Parents always put in their best efforts towards ensuring a child's successful academic future and towards fulfilling their Islamic responsibility. There is a great deal of debate in the Muslim community, particularly amongst those living in the West, about how best to educate the next generation. The issues are complex as parents attempt to balance concerns for their child's spiritual, emotional, and intellectual development. In this documentary, we explored the three main alternatives that Muslim parents are currently able to choose from: Islamic school, public school, or homeschooling. We weighed in some of the positive aspects and challenges facing all three options, hoping to give our viewers a unique perspective on one of the most important decisions they will have to make. What type of schooling is best for my kids? Public schools tend to have high educational standards where critical thinking and student growth are the priority. Islamic schools are another option, but are they a comparative alternative for the future generation? We visited the As-Sadiq Islamic School in Toronto that recently celebrated its 20th anniversary.
My name is Marcello D'Agostino, and I am an educator. I've been an educator for 38 years now. I've been working in mostly the Toronto Catholic District School Board for 37 of those years. This is my first year at Sadiq, and I'm very pleased and happy to be here. What we do at our school is we provide the Ontario curriculum, but within the Islamic faith and the Islamic values. So we do not subtract any of the Ontario curriculum, but we do add the Islamic way of life. So we begin our morning with morning assemblies and prayer. We will stop in the middle of the day for salat, for the students to go and pray. We also provide religious instruction in both Islamic studies and the teaching of the Quran and Arabic studies. So all of those are part of the school day for the child. So not only will they be doing their mathematics, their language, their science, but they will also be learning Islamic studies. They will be living the faith by practicing, by going and praying. So we integrate Islam and the Ontario curriculum. So we don't subtract anything, we just add to it.
Faith schools generally perform really well academically. Our experience here at As-Sadiq Islamic School is demonstrated, in fact, with statistics. In fact, there is a national organization called the Fraser Institute who they evaluate all the schools across the nation. And recently, in Ontario, which is the province where we're in, we ranked among the top 1% of schools, and there's over 3,000, over 3,000 schools. We were among the top 1%.
Fortunately, we had the opportunity to attend and watch the science fair competition that was taking place at the As-Sadiq Islamic School. At the event, we met with Brother Asif Kazmi, a physician and pediatrician in the community, who has been judging student projects at the science fair for the past 7 years.
Alhamdulillah, the faith-based system that we have, and I think faith-based schools across the board do very well in science fairs, certainly in the Islamic environment, because Islam very much promotes critical thinking, rational thought. It's a religion of reason, really. And so the children are taught that from a very young age. As they get older, the parents and the teachers work with them to show them, the mechanics of the universe. The mechanics imply a mechanist. So that all meshes very well together. As a result, by the time the science fair occurs, which we start from grade 5 onwards, they're very well versed in the scientific method. Then we just have to polish it by showing them the method of hypothesis, proving that. So overall, although there are no hard statistics as to how faith-based schools do versus secular, and also within any statistics that are available are more overall faith-related. So that includes, Jewish schools, Christian schools, Muslim schools. I'm not sure that that's necessarily a fair comparison because each faith has its own approach to science, but certainly the Muslim science schools do very well. Consideration that many parents, including myself, have when deciding whether to send a faith-based school is, it's always a bit of a tricky decision because there's a dilemma between you want to give your child the best of this world, and we're encouraged to do that religiously as well. There's no harm in availing the best of this world. On the other hand, we don't want them to be damaged by the processes that are sometimes occurring in the public system. So this is always a tricky question. Many parents like myself who choose to send their kids to a Sadiq specifically, but really any faith-based school that is notable, and many of them are in this area across the world, there's really no lack. Because faith doesn't really subtract from your education. It's not a matter of you're taking something out to fit it in. Faith just layers in right on top of that.
My name is Shabir Alibhai. I'm a physician by training and I'm also a scientist. So I work in a major teaching hospital downtown here in Toronto, and I do research in cancer in older adults, and I also do clinical work. I'm a physician and I specialize in geriatric medicine. So I tend to look after the complex and frail older adult population. So I have judged both faith-based schools and non-faith-based schools, but the difference is that when I judge non-faith-based schools, I actually judge at the university level. So I judge university students who are doing science projects, not science fair, but it's their annual research days. They come together and present the research that they're doing, and I've been a judge for many years in those kinds of projects. There have been several projects that really stand out in my mind. One of them particularly involved microorganisms and their exposure to certain drugs and how those drugs might affect the behavior of those microorganisms. Very sophisticated science, very relevant to medicine, beautifully done, elegantly incorporating Islam, modern science, and just a fabulous experiment. And I remember that project really went on to win awards at the regional and national level as well. And there have been several of those that I've seen and judged at this level, and I've seen them go on and heard great things. And so it's been very rewarding to see some of those projects and be able to judge them firsthand and say, this is spectacular, this is going somewhere, and to be inspired by that. So that's been very rewarding.
After a rigorous judging process, the 5 best performing students were selected to compete in the York Region Science and Technology Fair held at the Stephen Lewis Secondary School. This was an opportunity for the students to showcase their talents as well as compete with 100 other students coming from the public, Catholic, and private schools in the York region. Naturally, we were eager to meet and speak with the young scientists.
Well, I'm very proud of the students here at the Sadiq School. We have 5 participants, and inshallah, in the previous year we've had several winners. So this year, inshallah, we hope also to have some winners with the barakah of Allah and Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. Faith-based schools can excel academically and religiously. Some people have the perception or the misconception that faith-based schools are mostly religious and they can do well academically. Al-Sadiq Islamic school disproves this theory or this perspective. You can see around you here, we have people from various backgrounds and lots of schools. When they walk around and they see a Sadiq Islamic school, then it's important for them to realize that just that name, As-Sadiq Islamic School, we can compete, we can be there, and sometimes, as Imam As-Sadiq alayhi salam says, you can invite people to us not through your tongue, but rather through your actions. And this is one of the ways we can actually invite people to As-Sadiq alayhi salam, through our actions by being good at what we do and excelling in science.
My name is Yasin Abbas, and I'm a grade 7 student from As-Sadiq Islamic School. And this is the first time my project has made it to York region, and I'll be presenting tomorrow. And the title of my project is Mouthwash, Oral Health or Hazard. In the experiment, I compared the detrimental effects of a hydrogen peroxide mouthwash on the oral cavity cells of diabetics and non-diabetics. At Sadiq, the only one comment that I got from my judges was to just be a lot more comfortable in my experiment and just show that I'm calm. And from that feedback, I basically tried to rehearse a lot more so I'm more comfortable with the content that I'm talking about.
My name is Zara Jaffer and I'm from grade grade 7 in a Sadiq Islamic school. So my topic is the sweetest sweetener, and I got this by just researching topics, and I kind of just changed one about sugar, and this is my first time at York Region. I feel very proud that I'm here as an Islamic student because it is an Islamic school and not normally Muslims come to these kind of events, so I feel like we can show them that Muslims can do this as well, and I'm just very happy that I can be here today.
We later on received the exciting news of the results of the regional science fair. 3 of the students from a Sadiq Islamic school were winners at this year's competition, collecting 2 silver and 1 bronze medals. Homeschooling is becoming a very popular choice for parents in faith-based communities, especially within Muslim communities. To find out why, we decided to dig a little deeper and learn more about homeschooling and its benefits.
My name is Yusuf Ali, and I have been going to public school for 4 years. Homeschool is like they have a homeschool in their house, so they just get out of bed, brush their teeth, have breakfast, get ready, and then they go downstairs to their basement. It's an easy life like that.
Yusuf Ali's entertaining thoughts enlightened our views on the homeschooling process. But to study homeschooling from the perspective of the educators, we spoke with Bilkis Quick, one of the founders of the Toronto Muslim Homeschoolers.
Some of the things that a parent should ask themselves before they start homeschooling is whether or not they feel like they can find the time. And I say feel like they can find the time because you never know what it's like until you actually start doing it. It's basically you taking your children's education into your own hands. That doesn't mean that you have to do the teaching yourself. So there is a lot of outsourcing. There's a lot of curriculum out there that you're able to bring into your home to teach your child where you're actually not doing the teaching. You know, we do come from societies or cultures that you know, really the school, sending your child to school, sending your child to an institution is the better way, and is the only way of your child actually, you know, gaining knowledge and making it through life. So to reverse that now, when you're in a society where school is, you know, free and it's available for your child, to now reverse and decide to bring your child home, it's very, you know, daunting on, like, you know, the older generation and the extended family. A lot of times they have a hard time really accepting that.
Public schools are usually well funded by the government, allowing teachers to receive proper training, have easier access to professional development courses, and be well equipped with modern teaching methods. Without the same source of funding, how does homeschooling manage to provide a strong academic foundation? What happens when a parent is not able to cater to their child's interest in a specific subject?
I remember myself when my eldest got to grade 6, we were going through grade 6 math, and near the end, I thought to myself, I don't think I can go any further in math than this, because I had forgotten a lot of the math concepts. And I said to myself, I could actually relearn it, or I can get him a tutor. And then I decided I don't want to relearn it because I don't really, you know, I'm not really into math. So I actually got him a tutor for grade 7. When a child is interested in a certain subject or a certain field and the parents don't have access or don't know that certain subject, they usually have to do a lot of research to find someone or some kind of institution or another to put their child into for that particular subject. So there's a lot of parents who are trying to find mentors for their children, like a person who is in a certain field, has graduated and is working in a certain field. They're able to, you know, take their child and have them mentored by this person. It is something that's a little bit difficult for the parents to do, but it's something that they really have to try hard to do, and a lot of homeschool parents really put an effort into that. I don't think there is a need and for assessing the parents' ability to homeschool. I think there's a misconception sometimes that there are homeschool families that, you know, may neglect or abuse their children, and then their child's education is left aside, you know, while they're homeschooling. That is maybe, you know, 0.1% of homeschoolers. Homeschoolers tend to be, if you want, overzealous about their children's education and really focus on it. So there isn't really an issue of an assessment.
One of the major challenges Muslim parents face in having their children attend public schools is being aware of the social changes that their child is exposed to. Being brought up with Islamic principle and discipline, social issues like gangs, promiscuity, peer pressure, and drug abuse apparent in the public schools cause a concern for Muslim parents. Are we prepared for our youth to become a part of schools with such social pressures? Have we done enough towards educating them with their faith and strengthening their Islamic spirit in order for them to remain steadfast in the face of such issues?
My name is Amber Barwani, and I am 14 years old, and I have 2 older sisters and 1 younger brother, and for 10 years, so for all of elementary school, I went to a public school, and recently I switched to a Catholic school for high school. Listen to music and dance and everything, having dating and all the things like being skinny and pretty and stuff. I didn't want, that wasn't my goal in life. My goal was to be smart and educated. So that was like the most part they didn't like. In this environment, it was very tough for me because there was a lot of peer pressure and people were dating all the time, and everybody else around me, they were doing it, and it made me question myself and, you know, who I was, because they were questioning who I was. So that brought up a lot of thoughts about myself, and that made me question a lot of my own morals and why I was doing this. But that also, it made me stronger, because in questioning that, I realized that what I was doing in the long run, that'll be better for me. So it was hard at first, but then it made me realize, you know, who I am and why I've made these decisions.
The recent update of the Ontario sexual education curriculum in the public schools has created outrage amongst Muslim and non-Muslim parents alike. Concerned parents wrote numerous letters, signed various petitions, and organized long protests to express their opinions. Many even pulled their child out of school to oppose the newly imposed curriculum. The controversial new curriculum is scheduled to be implemented in public schools starting this coming September.
My name is Mubina Kara, and I have 3 children. My daughter Ayana is 12 years old, my son Kaysen is 10, and my son Zayn is 4. One of the challenges that my kids faced at the secular school was information that was not appropriate for them. For example, the sexual education. I found that they were being introduced to certain topics that were it was too early for them to understand and to be exposed to those topics. So that was one of the big challenges that we faced.
Other parents and teachers think that with challenges come opportunities, and this opens up doors for discussion.
My name is Samina Bimani, and I teach grade 5 in a public school in the York Region District School Board. I've been teaching in the public system for about 13 years, and I really enjoy it. It's been an interesting and fulfilling experience. As a Muslim teacher, I find that the new sex ed curriculum is challenging when I think about teaching it. At the same time, when I think about our society, our children are maturing a lot faster, and a lot of these issues do need to be tackled and taught, mainly because we want students to be aware of these issues before they start feeling these emotions or experiencing these changes. We want to make sure that we remain open, and if we're upfront about these things, then hopefully students will come to us and talk to us when they need a trusted adult to speak to about things that they may be feeling. As a Muslim parent, I find that it's important to remember that I am my child's first educator, and I need to make sure that I teach my children about these topics before they're addressed in school, so that my children are aware of the Islamic perspective.
My name is Fedek. I'm a mom of 2 kids. I have a son and a daughter. My son is 16, he's in grade 10. My daughter is 14, she's in grade 9, and they both attend high school in New York region. Was I worried that my kids were going to be exposed to different ideas? No. Maybe because I have more of a liberal stand. I actually welcome different ideas, even though they're different from our religion or our family, because I know they exist. And I think it opens up great communication and dialogue and discussions with my kids, and that's just the kind of relationship I have with them. I do believe that just being in public school is a smaller version of the real society, okay? So facing those challenges early on, having your children aware that those challenges exist, different ideas exist, different people exist, religions, ethnicities, what have you. To me, instead of it being a negative thing, I think it could be a positive thing, you know. I think it also builds a foundation for your children to be aware, to have self-awareness, to reflect, to be more tolerant, you know. So I think, yeah, it builds a good foundation for my kids to experience those things early on. I think it's a positive thing.
My name is Farhana Das Mohammed. I have 2 kids, and they go to public school. And I'm actually in education, but not in, the school education, more in the corporate education. I think what's really interesting in today's world is that whole discussion has been kind of preempted. So I think that kids in today's day and age are way more aware of that topic than we ever were, or that our parents ever were. So they have, based on the media and some of that, where it comes in from a television perspective, or from books, or from even what you see just walking down the street or going to a mall, the awareness is there. So I think it's less about whose sole responsibility is it, and more about us making sure that we're providing them the guidance, and we have that open communication with them. We have a safe space where our kids are able to talk to us about anything and everything. Because the only way that we'll be able to really help is if they can come to us with any situation that they're coming across. And we can talk about it from an Islamic perspective and from our family perspective, as opposed to if they were too scared to come and talk about certain things, then we would never know what's going on.
By choosing Islamic schools, such as a Sadiq Islamic school, or by homeschooling, parents can rest easy knowing that the social culture amongst students is monitored by Islamic values. Parents therefore have the opportunity to take this protective measure and work alongside teachers to inculcate in their child suitable Islamic morals and ethics. These learning environments act as an extension of the disciplined practice in Islamic households and upbringing.
Well, you take a simple thing as, understanding about our Ahlul Bayt, right? And this was one of the reasons I sent my son here, is I had brought him, when he was in his JK year, I had brought him to the Ashura program. And because, Sadiq has a Ashura program. So I had brought him to that, and the types of questions he was asking me, I was like, wow, and I want my child to learn who the Ahlul Bayt is, right? I want my child to love the Ahlul Bayt, to love Allah, and that's what I try to instill in him at home. And if that's reinforced at school, it's a win-win.
One thing I usually emphasize to some of the students here when I go to the classrooms and teach is what I call the what plus why equals how. And what I mean by this is a lot of times we just talk about what. What here could be Eid al-Ghadir. Okay. Eid al-Ghadir is a very important occasion. Okay. But why? So if you talk and you ask a lot of youths in Western country, even in Eastern countries, do you know Eid al-Ghadir? Some of them will say, yes, I do, of course. That's when the Prophet chose Imam Ali alayhi salam and appointed him officially as the successor, the Khalifa of the Muslims after him. So they know the what, okay, and that's some of them, of course. But when you ask the some, well, why is that important? There's no answer. For me, as a youth living in European, North American, Australian country in the 21st century, why does it matter? How would my life be changed if I did not know about Eid al-Ghadir? Okay. And that's the why component, which is very important, because if this youth does not understand why Eid al-Ghadir is important, then he'll be disengaged. It will become just a ritual. I come every year, I celebrate it and go. And then we work on making them understand the why. Okay. And once they understand the why, then it equals the how. How can I implement what I just learned about the what and the why into my life?
When thinking about the education costs, the fees at each learning institution vary significantly. Approximately 1.4 million students attend Ontario's 4,000 publicly funded elementary schools. Is any funding available for the Islamic schools? No, there is not. For this reason, we were curious to find out how different homeschooling costs would be.
The moms at home, usually the family becomes a one-income family. And, that's something that, again, the family or the parents have to decide. Usually the family deals with that by living a lifestyle of a one-income family. They usually reduce their budget, live, within their means, hopefully, and just deal with the fact of, it's just the dad bringing in the money. Sometimes the families start a business on the side. The mother will start a business. There's a whole host of curriculums and kits and activities out there for homeschoolers that do cost quite a lot. And it's for, it's up to that family to decide what is in their budget and what they can afford. And there's a lot of things that can be made. There's a lot of free printables online and, a lot of activities that can be made for free. So these are the types of things that the homeschooling family will do to be able to live within, their means. And as well, when you're sending your kids to school, there's so many other things that you need to purchase for your children to keep up to the latest fashion, the clothes and this kind of thing. But, there's a joke about homeschool children being in their pajamas all day. Sometimes that's actually true. So there goes, that's the clothes right there, right? You don't have to purchase so much clothes for your children because they're not necessarily using them all the time. But homeschool families do make it work with one income.
One of the problems with having to pay so much money for faith schools is the unfortunate fact that our government doesn't fund public faith-based schools. And it's a bit unfair. It's actually quite unfair because the Canadian school system does fund Catholic schools, but they're unwilling to fund Islamic schools or Sikh schools, Jewish schools. Steps are being taken to ensure that the government does the right thing, and I have faith in the system because it's a fair system, and they make sure that our money is being allocated in the correct way and according to what we citizens want. But it's important that we speak up because we are a part of this society, and when we don't like something or we really want something, we should speak up and use our voices because we are paying money into this system.
There is, however, a possible issue when choosing to homeschool children or having them attend Islamic schools. And that is that perhaps these children are too sheltered from the modern social culture, resulting in an insular experience that may be more harmful than beneficial in developing their social skills and strengthening their Islamic belief. Is this a valid concern?
The question is, do faith-based schools are fighting for survival because they feel segregated or they feel that the rest of society? We certainly don't feel that. I can't speak for other schools, I don't know, but we certainly don't feel that here at As-Sadiq. As you can see, I'm a non-Muslim. We participate with non-Muslim schools in interfaith experiences. We do sports and play games and so forth with other students. We are promoting ourselves. We believe we're not hiding, we are not segregating, we're actually taking part in Canadian society, and we're showing that we can compete both academically, in sports, and socially with the rest of society. So I don't see us running, I see us embracing Canadian culture.
My name is Kaniz Amir, and I have 3 kids. Both of them go to a faith-based school, As-Sadiq Islamic School, and I have a daughter who's now in high school, and she's the oldest, and I'm a supply teacher at As-Sadiq Islamic School as well. My daughter went to As-Sadiq School since she was about 3.5 years old, and she started off with the Montessori program. And my main objective was for her to gain that Islamic foundation and be able to learn so much about Islam at such a young age. And it was really a great decision that we did make. As soon as she got to grade 5, that's when we moved her into a public system, particularly because we found that she had been in the school for such a long time, and she didn't know about the outside world. I mean, yes, we live in Canada where we're surrounded by so many diverse people, but the school is, almost like the child's universe as well, because that's where the child spends so much of their day. And then they come home and they see the same people all the time. So we wanted her to be exposed to the outside. And that's why we made the decision to move her into a public school, because it was first of all, it was a great school as well. And not that we had issues with her being at As-Sadiq, her education was phenomenal here as well. But we chose for this because we wanted her to mingle and amalgamate with the outside people, and just to step out of this bubble where you're surrounded by Muslims all the time.
My name is Ms. Khazrani. I teach grade 6, 7, and 8 physical education, grade 7 and 8 science, grade 7 and 8 health, grade 7 history, geography, as well as one section of grade 7 art and drama. I don't see a problem with that. What is a problem with that? When people say that we're sticking to ourselves as a faith-based school, well, every other community does that too. Catholic schools, in a Catholic school, being in Canada, as a non-Catholic, I can't even go and teach there. So that is the law. That is in the Constitution. Now, in an Islamic school, we've got non-Muslim teachers teaching here. Is that not being inclusive? I don't see the comparison when you have publicly funded schools having such exclusivity, So I don't see that. I don't see a community wanting to grow as a community being not inclusive. I see that as being inclusive in the way that they want their children and all the generations to at least know where they come from, and know that they have an area that they can call their own, and be able to practice what they believe without worrying about what other people have to say. And then moving on to Canadian society as a Canadian citizen, and I guess you could say being involved members of society, because we're not, in our school, we're not excluding these children from society. We're teaching them how to become active members of society, but still be Muslim. So we want them to be involved.
As well, to homeschoolers, that's always in the back of the parents' mind, being able to socialize their children. So they usually over-socialize their children. They have their children, all these different activities, dealing with, different people, meeting different people. You know, they take their children with them in real life situations to, you know, stores and banks and different things like that. And the children are able to relate to a variety of different people of different ages. So, you know, usually when the children go out into quote unquote society or into, you know, higher education like, you know, university, college, even into high school, guaranteed people will comment to say that they're able to deal with and able to interact with a variety of people. And there's just shock to say, like, how is this child able to do this? Able to communicate with, you know, a person their age, a person younger than them, and a person their senior. And there isn't really that social awkwardness that people say. Yes, you know, it depends on the child's personality. They may, you know, take a little time to be able to feel out an environment with that many people around them, but they adapt very quickly. And usually the situation is positive and even very beneficial to the other people around them because they're able to include everyone in whatever it is that they're doing.
My name is Sakina Rashid. I live in Richmond Hill. I'm 16 years old. I have one younger sister, and currently I go to a Catholic high school in downtown. I was homeschooled for grades 7 and 8, but in grade 8 I'd work at because my dad has his own company, so I'd work at his office from 9 to 12. Like, I was an admin assistant, so I got some like work experience, and I like talked with his employees, and they told me about like school and how it was to find a job, so I got to talk to like real life people that I probably wouldn't have if I went to like a school.
For sisters wanting to wear the hijab while studying at the public school, being different has a whole new meaning. The attempt to do so challenges public misconceptions about Islam from an earlier age.
My name is Zia Das Muhammad, and I'm 10 years old. I go to a public school, and my experience at a public school has been really good so far. Also, my friends from school, like a bunch of them live near my house, so like we can play after school. I chose to wear hijab when I was 9 years old, and my experience was very well. Many people said I looked very good in it, and lots of people asked me questions that I was happy to answer.
When my daughter wore hijab, someone thought that she was going to just wear it for the day because it was her birthday that day, you know, and they asked her that question and she was able to answer it. So I think that, you know, I would have never thought of that as a question or have someone think of that, but that's one of them. You know, another thing that I had when I was younger was when I started wearing hijab, and people who hadn't known me before that thought that I had no hair, you know, so that's something that you would never think about. And when you are out there walking on the street or doing your daily stuff, no one's going to come up and ask you these kinds of questions. Whereas when you're in school, your friends will be brave enough or have a relationship with you, and that they'll be comfortable to ask you these kinds of questions. So you start changing conceptions and misconceptions that people may have about Islam at an earlier stage, where you would not get that access that easily when you are in a faith-based school.
Whichever path you choose for your child, one thing is common in all three options. Parents need to have a hands-on approach in their child's education. Education is first and foremost a parental responsibility, and developing an open communication with the child is key.
Often we expect as parents that the school should handle this, the madrasa should handle this, but we have a role to play as well in our children's lives. In fact, we have a great role to play. And so we expect sometimes not too much, but we are actually having unrealistic expectations. Sometimes we think that if somebody's child is going to an Islamic school, that they're actually going to some kind of hawza and then come out completely indoctrinated and completely changed. But that's not the case. It's actually a very regular school environment, but there's a pause in the day for namaz, for salah. There's a pause in the day, whatever they're discussing, to think about what is the Islamic perspective in this. Let's step back and look at this differently.
It is a family lifestyle. And it's a family decision, and it affects everyone in the family, regardless of whether, if you have some children that are homeschooled and some that are not, it's going to affect everybody, even if one child is homeschooled. So it needs to be a decision made by both parents and agreed upon by both parents.
The home environment, in my opinion, is very important. And what school you send your kids to is secondary to that. What I do with my kids is that we'll make sure every couple of days we'll just even sit at Tim Hortons, grab a coffee or a hot chocolate, and just have a very organic conversation. And I would know how to ask them. I'd know what to say, what kind of day they had, what did they talk about with their friends.
It is so important for a parent, to have a supportive environment at home and to have a good parent-child relationship with this, because it would be so hard going to school and having people bombard you with questions and having it just not wanting to be in that environment, and then coming home and having having no support, having no one to talk to about what you're going through. It would make it extremely hard. It would make you'd want to give up at some point, because there's nobody around you who understands or supports, or who sees what you're going through and wants to help. And I think it was so important for me having that environment at home, because I had my parents supporting me and my family, and I was able to go to mosque and go to madrasa, and I had all of these supports in place. So it wasn't so I had something to look forward to in a place that was comfortable for me, where I could talk about how I felt and how I had people who understood me and understood what I was going through and were willing to help me. And without that, I don't know if I could have gone through everything I did.
Each child is unique, as is each family, varying significantly in both discipline and lifestyle. Hence, there is no straightforward wrong or right conclusion that can be agreed upon across the community as a whole. Children are a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and parents should try to make informed choices based on their family structure, the child's personality, his or her interests, as well as the environment in which they are brought up. By doing so, not only are we strengthening their Muslim identity, but also empowering future generations to make a positive contribution in the wider society. In light of which, this will, God willing, help prepare a world that is ready for the arrival of the awaited Savior, Imam Mahdi. May Allah hasten his reappearance.